Let's get fucking pumped, Nadine. You ready to warm up? We're talking about warm-ups today. We're going to go over dynamic warm-ups, dynamic stretching, static stretching, a bunch of foam rolling, a bunch of banded stuff. When do we use it? How do we use it? Why do we use it? All right. Warm-ups, let's kick it off. Dynamic, we always want to start off with dynamic. You come to our class, we have a Revive that kicks off Primal Path in our group class. And if we're working on our own, I'm a big fan of kicking in the core right from the get-go. All of our movement is core to extremity. Best way to do that is by dynamic movement. That dynamic movement is exactly what it is just trying to actually create some sort of load and movement of the body. I know it seems incredibly repetitive, but let's get into it. Dynamic movement, a good one for this. I always like to start off with, when I'm not doing core strictly of like a sit-up or something like that, I'm a big fan of a bear crawl to get started. So with the bear crawl in general, first thing to start that warm up, I like to get nice high pike position. So we're keeping the hips high. And then we can just kind of work our way forward, walk up steps. If we want to make it a little bit harder, bend the knees. And then we can continue to walk, or we make it a little bit harder. We can drop those knees to hover. So that low bear crawl position. This is my favorite for warming up, so adjust as you need for a dynamic warm up. And I really like to roll onto the fingers as I'm kind of taking that step and just kind of rolling up on there, going nice and slowly, feeling the core, feeling the shoulders load, hips load, everything like that. Good, Nadine, we can come up out of there. A couple other ones that are simple, leg swings. We're just bringing that leg forward and back. Not really thinking too much about the movement. If we're just trying to get that dynamic stretch in, we can go through here. We could also really focus on that movement. So rather than allowing the leg to really open up and keep that foot swinging out, we could just tighten that up so we feel a smaller movement, a little bit more of that glute activation, keeping that hip stable. So the dynamic movement could be just, hey, I'm moving around and swinging things, or it could be, hey, I'm focusing on keeping my foot straight, but creating that movement. Always start off your training sessions with dynamic movement. You're just prepping that body. It's the best way. It's the healthiest for the joints, the tendons, muscles, making sure if anything feels funky, we'll be able to identify it rather than just going into a static stretch, which we like to do towards the end. But after we get done with a little bit of dynamic warm up, we always go to, or we can go to, foam rolling or resistance bands. I'm a big fan of going in resistance bands next. So we do some banded pull aparts. Now we're creating that resistance in those muscles, so a little bit more of that joint health that we'll be getting. Some pass-throughs we can do. I'm a big fan of banded pass-throughs rather than PVC pass-throughs. It just allows a more unilateral movement of the shoulders. And as well as after like resistance training, we could also go foam roller. So if we have that foam roller, many of us know this, we're just kind of creating that sensory touch to the muscles where we can just roll out the quads. I'm a big fan of doing like foam rolling and banded stuff like in between sets, or you're warming up for squats, or you're doing a strength program. I'm a big fan of doing stuff like this, that we can get in, roll out the quad, we can flex and extend that foot up at the kneecap while we create that rolling pattern as well. Then what we could also do is then create internal, external rotation. So now we're taking that foam rolling and we're adding a little bit of that dynamic stretch in there, so she can be moving up and down. Once again, just get that body to move. We're trying to get that touch to that muscle, release some of the fascia to give you a little bit more space, increase your range of motion. But in general, we want to use that foam roller, that lacrosse ball, kind of before we get into that heavy work, or we're just kind of feeling any little hiccups or clunkiness of the body. It's a good way to get out there. In general, if we're just foam rolling and we're not doing it in between sets, we have about 5 to 10 minutes before our body adjusts back. Once again, this is sensories, creates that touch. It tells us that mind-muscle connection, or tells our mind-muscle connection to kick in and start working, and the body goes, oh, I can use these muscles. If we just do that foam rolling and then on our legs and we go to upper body, in about 10 minutes, it's kind of useless. So use that stuff in between sets if you're in a strength program, or still getting a little bit longer warm up of that. And finally, what we have is static stretching. This is the one that everyone knows about. Big fan of doing this post-workout. A lot of us in the fitness, micro gym, CrossFit world know Ramwad. Ramwad was a big name, and they still are, that do a lot of more yin-based yoga movements, which we're huge fans of as well. Just static position holds and extended periods of time that we're holding in this position. So we can do a simple one of just like a cross your legs over toe reach, that we're just hanging out here and we're working our breath while we're in these static positions. So every time we exhale, we're trying to get a little bit further on that stretch. We're inhaling, holding that position, exhaling, trying to relax the body so we can get lower. We can come up out of there. We can do arms across the body stretch, same thing. Just kind of work that breath control when we're doing that static stretch overhead. In general, what we say is 2 minutes we want to hold that movement for. 2 minutes is a good amount of time to get over what we think our body is stretching, allow that breath to relax the body, allow our nervous system to relax, especially if it's post-workout, and then we can start really feeling the movement of the body. Maybe the hands are getting closer to the ground when we're leaning over. Maybe the chest is getting closer to the ground if we're in a pigeon stretch, something like that. But these are 3 different types of techniques that we use during warm-ups or cool-downs. Start utilizing the best of the way you can. Try them out, mix them up, and see how different it changes that workout. So throw in a workout after you just did static movement and see how you feel. I mean, you know. Yeah, I mean, you might not feel a huge difference, but you will though. If you get used to doing dynamic warm-ups after a while, try that foam rolling between your sets, try that static towards the end, see how it changes up your training and your routine, and let us know how it goes. As always, click the like, subscribe, notification, bling, bling, all that fun stuff. If you like our videos, and if you have any comments, questions, shoot us a message, info@findyourprimalpath.com. We'll see you guys next week.